Donald Peterson presents The True Adventures of Junior G-Men.
The Junior G-Men are on the air, speeding to your home, ready for action. Stand by. All Junior G-Men, stand by. Stand by for the thrilling details of the footprint that solved a crime. Calling all Junior G-Men. Stand by for report of Junior G-Man Anthony Adams concerning...
The footprint that solved a crime.
Report number 906 in 3 parts is given by Operator Anthony Adams of Weston. Part 1.
Well, fellas, I'm going to begin this report by telling you a little something about Mr. and Mrs. Kirby, the people who live right across the hall from us on the ground floor of the Wilshire apartment house. They only moved in a short time ago, and right off the bat the other tenants began to whisper about them. You see, they acted kind of funny, sort of kept to themselves, almost as though they were, well, hiding from something or something. Well, one night after the Kirbys had lived in the apartment house almost 2 months, Mr. Daniels, the superintendent of the building, came to our apartment to fix the lock on one of our doors. His helper, Willie Jackson, was with him. And, oh, by the way, before I forget to mention it, Willie's a little funny, you know what I mean. Anyway, they had just finished repairing the lock and...
Well, there you are, Mr. Adams. I guess that just about does it.
Good, and a nice job, Dan.
Oh, gosh. Gee whiz. Look what I done. I knocked that nice little vase off the table.
Yes, Willie, so I see.
I didn't mean it, though. Honest, I didn't. It was an accident, it was. I didn't mean it.
I know, Willie, I know. Now, look here, Mr. Adams. I'm awfully sorry this had to happen. Well, I'll see that the vase is replaced.
Oh, don't bother, Daniels. It's quite all right. Now, please, just forget all about it.
Well, that's very nice of you, but...
It sure is nice of you, Mr. Adams. I was awful scared for a minute. I was afraid you might hit me, like Mr. Kirby did.
Mr. Kirby? The man across the hall? He hit you?
Yeah, and awful hard, too. He knocked me right against the door. It made me awful mad, and I wanted to do something to him. But I thought I'd better wait.
Why did he hit you, Willie?
Well, I broke one of the mirrors in his apartment, and he said that was the most awful kind of luck. Well, it was hard luck for me, all right. I still got a bump on the back of my head where I hit it against the door.
Oh, I see. Did you know about this, Daniels?
Yes, and I spoke to Mr. Kirby about it, too. He apologized for losing his temper.
Well, that's something, I suppose.
That's a great deal from a man like Kirby. But look here, Mr. Adams, if you'll just tell me, just tell us where to put the broken pieces of this vase. Willie and
No, just leave them where they are. My son and I will pick them up after you leave.
Well, all right, then. Pick up the tools, Willie, and let's be going.
Sure, Mr. Daniels.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Adams, have you missed anything around the apartment lately?
Well, not a thing. Why do you ask?
Well, Mr. Kirby insists that certain articles have been stolen from his desk. Nothing very valuable. Just some letters and an old diary and, well, things like that. I was afraid we might have a sneak thief in the house, you know. Maybe Mr. Kirby merely mislaid those things he thought were stolen.
Oh, he probably did.
Well, he had me a little upset. You see, he accused me of, but what difference does it make? Probably was just another case of his losing his temper.
Well, that seems to be a habit with him.
Yes, it does. Well, Willie, have you got those tools together?
Yes, Mr.
Well, all right, then. Let's go. Well, good evening, Mr. Adams.
Good evening.
Good evening, Tom.
Good evening. Well, and that's that. Well, come on, son. We might just as well get started cleaning up this mess.
Yes, I suppose you're right, Dad. Gosh, Mom's going to have a fit when she comes home and finds that vase broken. Well, did you see Mr. Kirby close up, Dad?
I passed him in the hall several times. Why?
Did you ever notice how he acts? The way he looks over his shoulder. Well, it's almost as if he were afraid someone were following him.
Oh, I don't know, Tony. It's probably just a habit. And
all right, then. How did he get the habit? Do you suppose he could be some kind of criminal? You know, an escaped convict?
Now, wait a minute, Tony. Wait a minute. Aren't you looking for trouble?
No, Dad. It's just that... Well, a junior G-man should be on the alert.
Yes, I know, but he shouldn't be looking for trouble. That's bad business. And I'm sure there isn't a single rule in the code that advises it. As I understand it, the only aim of the organization is to make all American boys good American citizens. Now, a good citizen doesn't go looking for trouble, son, and he doesn't tell tales. He merely lives his own life in accordance with the laws of the land, and when he sees that a law is being deliberately broken, takes that information to the proper authorities. That can't be called telling tales, because that's a part of every worthwhile American citizen's duty. But look here, I've preached long enough. We've got work to do. We've got to clean up this mess before Mother gets back, or we'll get all...
Well, it was just a couple of nights later that Dad and I were alone in the apartment when the buzzer sounded. I answered it, of course, and just about got the shock of my life when I saw Mr. Kirby standing in the doorway. Dad invited him in, and after we'd all introduced ourselves...
Mr. Adams, I find that I need your help.
My help,
Yeah.
Mr. Kirby?
Yeah. Well, I've got to confide in you. I've got to tell you what's on my mind, and you've got to listen.
You're being very mysterious.
No more so than I've got to be. You'll realize that after you've heard my story. Look here, Adams. This fellow
Superintendent of the
Daniels.
building?
Yes, this fellow Daniels. What do you know about him?
Well, nothing more than any of the other tenants in the building. He's a good man, police.
Oh, how long has he been here?
Oh, several years, I imagine. At any rate, he was already here when we moved into this apartment 2 years ago.
And his helper, this Willie, what about him?
Well, that's something else again. Willie was taking on about, let's see. I don't believe Willie's been working here more than 6 weeks. Am I right about that, son?
Yes, you're Dad. Mr. Daniels took Willie on as his helper shortly after Mr. and Mrs. Kirby moved in.
Shortly after we moved in, eh?
That's right, sir.
And you don't remember ever having seen him around the place before? He actually started working.
No, sir.
And it's just possible that Willie is... I wonder if I could only be sure.
Now, wait a minute, Kirby. As far as I can see, Willie's perfectly all right. There isn't
And that, Mr. Adams, is exactly it. Our friend Willie is all right, as far as you can see. As far as I can see, for that matter. But he could be the one.
The one? What one?
The one who's threatened to kill me.
The one... Gosh.
Are you serious about this, Kirby?
If you don't think I am, just listen to the note I received this morning. It's addressed to me, and the writer says, "Your number's up, Kirby. You're going to die. I've followed you for 10 long years, and now I'm ready to strike. Remember Ralph Graham?" And it's signed, The Avenger.
Gee whiz.
Well, look here, Kirby. You'd better get in touch with the police.
And that's where my hands are tied. I can't get in touch with the police.
What do you mean you can't?
I'm wanted. Oh, you needn't look so shocked, my friend. It's true, I'm wanted by the police.
What for?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try to give you the facts as briefly as I can. 11 years ago, I had a partner who called himself Ralph Graham. That wasn't his real name, but, well, then I wasn't using my real name either. The business we were in didn't permit that. You see, well, we were selling bonds.
Worthless bonds.
Exactly, and doing very well, too. However, the police caught up with us, and I was forced to leave the country. Well, for my health.
And your partner, this Ralph Graham?
Was arrested, tried, and convicted. He died 2 years later.
In prison?
Yeah, in prison.
And this letter?
Obviously written by someone who knew Ralph Graham. A relative, perhaps. Or one who feels that I should have given myself up and taken my share of the blame. But this isn't the only letter. I've received a number of them since I returned to the States. Wherever I've gone, the letters have followed. That's why I'm becoming a little desperate. You see, I'm beginning to believe that the writer actually means what he says.
And you haven't any idea who that writer is?
None whatsoever. You see, Graham and I didn't know very much about each other outside of business. I didn't know his friends or relatives, and he didn't know mine. We only saw each other during, well, shall we say, business hours.
And why have you told me all this?
Because you're going to help me find out who the Avenger really is.
Oh, no, I'm not, Kirby. You're not going to drag me into this.
Unfortunately for you, my friend, you're already been dragged into it.
Well, I can go to the police.
But you won't.
And why not?
Because of your son, Mr. Adams. This fine young man whose safety, I imagine, means a great deal to you. Please, Mr. Adams, control yourself, or I shall lose control of my trigger finger. You see, I came prepared. I'm carrying a very efficient little automatic.
Now, look here, Kirby. You can't force me to go through with this. Besides, there's nothing I can do to help you.
On the contrary, you can help me a great deal. However, I won't bother you with the details just now. I'll let you get accustomed to the idea. Tomorrow, well, tomorrow's another day, isn't it? Right now, I'll just bid you a very good evening. Oh, by the way, you'll take good care of that boy of yours, won't you? But of course you will. Of course you will.
Of course, Dad was all upset. He didn't know what to do. He was afraid to call the police, and yet he knew that it was the only thing to do. We sat and talked the whole thing over. And then, almost an hour after Mr. Kirby had left us...
Why did he have to pick on us? Why did he
Gee
have
whiz, Dad, take it easy. After all... Want me to answer that, Dad?
No, son. It might be Mr. Kirby again. I'll answer it myself.
Okay, Dad.
Yes? What is it?
Does a man by the name of Kirby live here?
No, he doesn't. He lives across the hall in apartment 1B.
Oh, thanks. Sorry I bothered you.
Oh, that's all right.
Dad, that man,
What about him?
the Avenger. Do you suppose it could have been
good
him?
Heavens, son, if he... Oh, but it couldn't have been. It couldn't have been. And yet... Oh, come on, son. Let's forget all about this before it drives us both insane.
But we can't just forget about it, Dad. We're in this thing pretty deep, and, well, gosh, we just got to get out, you know.
But how? Seems to me that Kirby has us pretty well sewed up. If I get in touch with the police...
You've got to get in touch with the police, Dad. You've got to. It's the only way.
Well, now what?
Gee, Dad, if it's that man again...
Now, easy, son, easy. I'm going to open the door. Well, why, Mrs. Kirby.
Yes, I'm Mrs. Kirby. Oh, Mr. Adams, something terrible has happened.
What's happened?
My husband is...
Calling all Junior G-men to follow the case of the footprint that solved the crime. Flash, stand by for important announcement concerning the next broadcast. Calling all Junior G-men to proceed at once to points of duty. Calling Junior G-man Anthony Adams to report to Director Donald Peterson at the next meeting on this station to continue report concerning...
The footprint that solved a crime.